back to Love Your Food. This week we have another great recipe for you that you're going to love. This is a beautiful beet salad. Now, frequently you'll see a roasted beet salad that is just roasted beets and goat cheese. We've got a little bit more going on in this one. We've got some bitter greens and a really beautiful sour dressing to go with it. So we're going to show you our ingredients. So obviously we're going to be using some beets. We have a little bit of fresh thyme and rosemary. Some walnuts. This is some Belgian endive. Some beautiful fresh goat milk cheese. We're going to be using some radicchio. This is some kale. And then the dressing is mostly going to consist of Dijon mustard, olive oil, and this is some red wine vinegar. Now you do want a vinegar that is quite tart. Something that's very sour. You don't want really mild vinegar. So the first thing we're going to be doing is roasting our beets. So what we have here is just a regular pie tin with enough salt in the bottom to, not a whole lot of salt, just a very thin layer, just enough to help the beets stand up. So we just want them to stand in place and not move around, not roll around in the pie tin. We're going to put most of our fresh herbs on top here, and amounts are going to be in the description below as usual. And then we're going to cover this. We're going to wrap this in tin foil. Just showing you there, that's all the herbs on top. And we're going to roast these with the herbs so they sort of infuse with that, that beautiful flavor from those fresh herbs. So you want to make sure you get a pretty good seal around the outside on the tin foil or whatever you're going to cover this with. And just get a good seal all the way around. Doesn't matter if the tinfoil is touching the beets, that's fine. It's all good as long as you've got a good seal around the outside, really keeping the aromas and everything in from your fresh herbs and the beets themselves. So what we're going to do is put that in the oven, and we're going to roast those at a pretty high temperature, actually about 400, and we're going to start with an hour. Now, depending on the size of your beets, it may take a little bit more time. That's going to depend on how big the beets are, how firm they are. So we're going to take them out. It's been an hour. Let's take a look here and see where we're at. So you want them to be pretty tender to a fork. So we're just going to gently pull open our tin foil here on the outside. Be very careful because there's a lot of steam. There's going to be a fair amount of steam in there. It's going to be very, very hot. And you're just going to gently give them a little poke. Now, ours turned out to still be pretty firm. Now, beets are always going to be fairly firm, but ours were still a little too firm to deal with. So we sealed it back up, and if you find that they're still pretty hard, we do recommend putting them back in the oven and then increasing the time 20 minutes at a time. So we did it for another 20 minutes. And after that, we pulled it out, and we were a little less careful opening it this time. But here you see Chef Caleb is just going to open up the tin foil here. And we're going to give them a little poke once again. And this time they were much softer. You can see the steam coming off of there. It is very, very hot. And we do need to let these cool before we can use them. So we're going to keep these covered. We're going to let them cool covered. In the meantime, we're going to get our walnuts in the oven. And while those start to toast, we're going to chop up our fresh, this is the remainder of our fresh herbs. So this is the thyme and rosemary. And this is going to be the flavor basis for the sauce. So we're going to sort of mirror the flavors that we've roasted the beets with in the dressing as well. That's going to go into our bowl, our mixing bowl. Now, one thing I did miss in the ingredients list at the beginning was a shallot. So here we have a shallot, and I apologize for that. We are going to be chopping this up. Now for this recipe, you've seen us in previous recipes. What we've done is we've grated the shallot to make it really, really smooth. We did that for some of the marinades we've done. But for here, we really want this to have sort of the same texture as, like, if you ever had oysters, you've had a mignonette. We just want a really fine mince on these so that there's still a little bit of texture. It gives it a little bit better flavor for this application. So we're just going to keep it minced and not completely crushed or grated. And then once you've got enough color, and again, this is going to depend on your oven, once you have enough color, take your walnuts out. So to finish the dressing, we're going to add some of the Dijon mustard. This is a little bit of a grainy mustard that we absolutely love. And we're going to add our red wine vinegar. And a little bit of the olive oil. Now, normally for a dressing, you would be adding a similar quantity of vinegar to olive oil, but for this one, we do want it to be quite tart because we're going to be using such bitter greens in here. So it's really going to be a lot more vinegar than oil in this particular recipe, and again, you'll see amounts in the recipe in the description below. So we're just going to give this a good mix, make sure it's all well combined. This is going to be the basis of our dressing. So a little bit of fresh cracked black pepper. And a little bit of salt as well. And then a good mix with a fork will do this just fine. You can use a whisk if you prefer, but it is really not necessary for this. We just want to make sure that everything is well combined in the bottom of our mixing bowl. So now is the time to start to deal with our beets. So what we're going to do, they're now cool enough to handle. We've let these cool covered for a while. The roasted herbs have served their purpose. We can get rid of those. And then what you want to do is the skin should come off pretty easily. Now don't crush them. You want to be pretty gentle, but you want to give them a good enough push that the skin just kind of sloughs off. It should be fairly easy if they're done. If you find that they're not quite done or they're not coming off very easily, it may be that they need a little bit more time, but when they're done, they will shed their skin very, very easily in this way. So once the beets are all peeled, time to get the rest of the salad together. So we're going to strip the kale off of their stems. You can use the stems. They are quite tough, so if you want to use the stems, please just be aware that you need to chop them very, very finely, or else you'll have pretty tough, fibrous chunks of stem in your salad. We prefer not to, so we're just going to strip the leaves off the stem. They come off very, very easily. And then we're just going to chop it up fairly gently here. The thing about these kale leaves is they are a little bit springy, much like the radicchio, and when you chop them, if you're chopping really, really fast, they can tend to go flying a little bit. They uncoil, basically. So we're just going to put our kale into the bowl on top of the dressing that we've already made. And then we're going to start getting our other ingredients ready. So this is our endive. We're going to save a little bit of the leaves from this for display. Now we were doing 3 per plate for just plating purposes, and we'll show you that near the end. We had 2 of the endive, so we needed 15 total leaves. We were doing 5 plates. And when you pull one of the leaves off, frequently what you'll end up having to do is cut the bottom off to get the next leaf without breaking it. And that just makes a really nice display. So once you've had enough leaves set aside, the rest of the little baby leaves in the middle, we're just going to chop those up and toss them into the salad. And if you see any tough little pieces of stem in there, perfectly okay to throw those into the compost. That's okay. So those little bits are going to go into the salad. And now for the radicchio, we're going to give it a cross cut here, almost down to the root. And then we're just going to chop it. Again, like the kale, it is kind of a springy plant, and when you chop it, it will sort of spring apart a little bit. you just want basically bite-sized pieces of everything. And you can get rid of the rib, the root sort of section in the bottom there. And then once that's all together, we're just going to toss it into the bowl with the kale and the dressing. And the little bit of endive we had in there. A little bit of salt. Some fresh black pepper. And then we're just going to combine well. So give it a good stir. Make sure you're getting a good amount of the dressing up into the leaves. You want to make sure it's well coated, well combined. Now is the time you can add your walnuts as well. So here's your nice toasted walnuts. And then once it's all well combined, everything looks like it's pretty well coated with your dressing from the bottom of the bowl. Then you're ready to start plating. So we're going to show you that. We've got all these beautiful colors in here. So we're going to prepare our beets first. So we're just cutting these into eighths. So just into fours, and then that in half. If you're using these nice dark red beets like these, you will find that they will stain your cutting board, so don't be alarmed. So just for some plating, we're going to put some of those beautiful endive leaves down, those nice crisp green leaves. And on top of that is going to go the bitter greens from the salad, nicely dressed. And then on top of that, we're just going to put some of the beets. And you should have a good idea while you're roasting the beets how many beets per person you're going to be serving. And then on top of that, we're going to add a nice dollop of our beautiful fresh goat cheese. Now, you can arrange this however you like. You can roll it into a ball. You can crumble it into smaller pieces. We just like to have the nice big chunk of fresh cheese on top. And you can take with your spoon or fork as much as you like with each bite that you're taking. And all of this combines really, really well. This is a classic salad, the beet and goat cheese, the beautiful bitter greens with that nice sour dressing will really make everything pop. Absolutely delicious. Goes really well with roasted meats or steak. Fantastic, easy recipe. If you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.